coming down so that it's not holding the light in place. Hey.
Hi. Oh yeah, I have to mute this.
Hey. Is the audio okay? Can you hear me?
I heard it.
Cool. We're here. Welcome back to Shapeshifters live stream.
Don't mind me. I'm just turning the teddy bear into a pincushion.
R.I.P. Thank you for your service, tiny
What
teddy bear.
R.I.P. I'm still here.
It's the start of a video. We should probably introduce ourselves.
Oh yeah.
I'm Eli. My pronouns are they, them.
I'm Krista. I'm she, they. I'm also the one who is monitoring the chat for questions and whatnot.
And today, since we've been making masks all week, we're digging today to do some more mask making, some miscellaneous cleanup, counting, doing other things, and also saying hi to everyone out there. Come on in, ask a question, tell us what's up with you.
Yeah, let us know what you're working on. If you're sewing, if you're baking, knitting, whatever. If you're just hanging out.
Yeah, we want to hear from you. In the meantime, I'm going to be counting first off so that I can block out blocks of 50 because I think I can now just do 50 at a time.
Oh.
Yeah, that'll be nice. I don't know that I can do 50 from start to finish in a day, but I can definitely do all 50 top stitches in one day, and I can do all 50 seams in one go, and that sort of thing.
You're getting quiet.
Sorry. Getting quiet because I'm counting.
Oh, I do have a bit of information. We were talking a bit in the very first live stream we did about how to tell the difference between cotton and, not cotton.
100% cotton versus cotton poly blend.
We had this accident. Do I have a smaller? Do you know where the smaller bit went?
Yeah, here it is.
Oh, that wasn't what I meant, but that works too.
It's a small bit of the accident.
Yeah, so we picked up a whole several yards of this fabric while we were out buying cotton. And we cut it up during the first live stream. And we were under the impression that it was cotton because it was with all of the rest of the cottons. Actually, this isn't going to work.
Okay. Do you want a piece of scissors? A piece of scissors. Can I offer you a piece of scissors in these trying times to cut a chunk?
I'm trying to find the bottom.
String.
Oh, here we go. So, after we signed off, I looked down at this and saw the way that it was fraying, and I got concerned because it doesn't fray the same way that cotton usually does.
Do you want a piece of cotton that is fraying for comparison?
So if you look at, I'm like rustling all this fabric right next to the microphone. If you look at this, you see as the threads sort of come unraveled, it sort of sticks straight out. It doesn't like wrinkle or anything.
Here's for comparison a piece of 100% cotton that is frayed.
Yeah, and you see like the threads kind of stick together. They want to stick together.
They come out and they drop, and also they're a little bit more fuzzy because the cotton fibers, I don't know if the camera's catching this, the cotton fibers really, the fiber themselves start to unravel and turn into lint and dust next to each other.
Well, just the fact that they want to wrinkle and they want to stick together, and this stuff doesn't. And that's one of the ways that you can tell if a fabric is not cotton, or at least not entirely cotton, because we did do that burn test.
We did indeed set it on fire.
Yeah, and it mostly melted. So now we have this poly mix that we can use for other projects.
Yeah.
But not this one.
We'll figure out what to do with it. It may or may not be water resistant enough for something like a gown. Jury's still out on that. But yeah, one really useful thing we did with the burn test that helped me out a lot was that we burned a piece of what we knew was 100% next to, like alongside burning that piece of cotton poly blend. And the behavior is really different and the smell is really different. And the way that the cotton poly blend sort of curled back and shrank into
It
little
melted.
globs of plastic. Yeah. It's difficult to describe, but very, very easy to see. And as always, practice proper fire safety. Do it outside or do it in a metal bucket. Do
Very small pieces.
Very small pieces. Extinguishing materials close to hand. The last thing anyone needs right now is a house fire.
So anyway.
6. And with that,
we promised we were going to actually talk about something else today.
Yeah, but you know, it's the topic of the hour, especially.
I really wanted to follow up on that.
Yeah. Guidance, which
right.
Soon as last week, I wasn't sure that was going to happen, but now masks.
Right. Can you tell people what the new CDC guidelines are, just in case they haven't heard?
Right. So I'm getting a connection unstable. Are we still on?
Yeah.
Cool. So the new CDC guidelines essentially are wear a cloth mask while you're outside.
Before it was just people who were in high risk categories wear them outside.
People in high risk, people in direct contact with people who are sick. But of course, we don't know because there's a lot of asymptomatic carriers. So wearing a cloth mask is kind of the logical thing to do. And it's also the sort of thing that I'm kind of happy to finally see out there, just because, I mean, Japan is already sending 2 cloth masks to every citizen, like direct from the government. Other people have known this already, and now we're catching up, and it's nice to see.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So today, we're not actually talking about masks. We were going to talk about the town that we live in, which is Brattleboro, Vermont.
It's a lovely space. Even now, especially now, I think.
So if you're not familiar with Brattleboro, which is totally fair, I was not familiar with it up until about 5 years ago. Brattleboro is on the southeast corner of Vermont, right on the border of New Hampshire, and just a single town up from the border of Massachusetts.
It's a very crossroads town, and it feels that way, and has since we moved here. To me, it's so many people just say I'm from the area when they're from New Hampshire or Massachusetts, because we're in this corner, and it's very, very strange to me that the closest other towns in a lot of directions, or the closest big box stores, or particular closest stores, are in other states.
Yeah, we figured this out at one point because Eli's mother used to send us Starbucks gift cards for Christmas every year, which worked slightly better when we were living just outside of New York. But the nearest Starbucks to us in state is an hour away. We do have a very, very nice, very cool local coffee shop that roasts their own beans. But yeah, if we want a slightly nearer Starbucks, it's over in New Hampshire.
But now Mom doesn't send us Starbucks gift cards anymore, and Mocha Joe's does really good coffee. They're called Mocha Joe's. They're great. They're doing really nice things like curbside pickup of coffee beans in these times, because of course their downtown in-person coffee shop location is shuttered. And they were super kind in donating the closures for coffee bags.
Those little wire bendy bits.
Yeah, the flat wires to be used as nose bridges in masks. So thank you, Mocha Joes. I know we owe y'all some pictures of masks made with them, and that's coming. And it was just really nice. I emailed them asking, hey, who's your supplier? Do you think maybe you could spare a few? And they were like, here, take a bag. Which is Brattleboro all over, really, is that we buy local, we look out for each other locally, and in a time like this, when everyone is just working our butts off to support each other, I literally just make a call and say, hey, here's what we're doing, here's what we need. And invariably, the local response has been, great, here's how I can help. And then it happens. I haven't seen a whole lot of my friends and community in person over the past 3 weeks, which I'm sure is common to all of you. But there's something really incredible and wonderful about messaging a friend and saying, okay, I'll leave it on your doorstep, or a friend messaging me and saying, okay, check your doorstep, it's there, or here's what I can do, here's where you can pick it up. And these packages and gifts and deliveries that we make to each other
Rolls
are
of toilet paper.
rolls of toilet paper are keeping us together right now. And it's really freaking great.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who are like finding ways to reach out in person without being able to really do that.
Yeah.
Our town Facebook page, which has been sort of it's an interesting space.
It's a hotbed of contention.
I'll be right back. I just want to get some livers.
Awesome.
Over here.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Brattleboro Town Facebook page now. And the thing is, in previous years, or even in previous months,
I was going to say up until about 2 months ago.
Sure, it's been a place for like nice, cute messages saying that, oh, the barbecue place on the hill is really good, or petty grievances like, oh, hey, to the guy who cut me off on the intersection, screw you. There's been like bitter fights about development downtown, and there's been really rough and bitter fights about homelessness and opioid addiction. And there's it's a constant struggle to stay on it. And
but my point was
right. Sorry, introduction to our small town Facebook.
No, it's not an introduction. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of depth about it.
Thank you.
I just wanted to point out that while it has been historically a place of strong emotions, more recently it's just been people, I'm making masks. Is there anybody who can get me in touch with people I can hand them off to? Everybody's looking for like elastic, for cotton, just for supplies and for where to send them off to be the most help. And it's been nice.
Yeah. And on that note, I do want to plug, if you are in the area, if you are in southern Vermont or southwestern New Hampshire, we have a specific dedicated Facebook group now. It's called Southern Vermont, Southwestern New Hampshire Mask Sewing on Facebook. It is coordinated actually by a employee of the town of Brattleboro, our Brattleboro Sustainability Coordinator, which is one of those jobs that only just came into existence recently. And I sort of, because my mother is in city planning, I sort of kind of figured out that part of the sustainability coordinator's job is to figure out what they're doing. And one of the things that he's decided he's doing is coordinating mask making and collecting data lists of who needs it and how many they need, and who's making it and how many they're making, and who needs materials and where can we get materials. And he's been doing that administrative work, which is super important, because now we know, okay, this nursing home needs 50, this shelter needs 30, this food bank needs 30. Let's assign volunteers to sew for this person, this group, and this group. This hospital needs this many, and here's the hospital drop-off point. And it's all in one spreadsheet that can be found on the Southern Vermont, Southwestern New Hampshire mask sewing group's pinned post.
And so this way you have like you're able to keep track of where the masks are going. Um, so instead of having the hospital say, "Oh, we need 100 masks," and like 5 different people deciding on their own to make a ton of masks, and then the hospital gets inundated with more masks than they can use, and other places like the nursing home end up not really getting any. It's much more uh, not economic. That's the wrong word, but it's more organized.
Yeah, it's coordinated. Distribution is an important job in small economies, in any economy, but in small economies like this, where in small systems like this, where every single mask can make a difference in a place, you want to get it to that place as quickly as possible.
Crystal Sun says efficient. Yes, that's the word I was looking for.
That's the word.
Negative Gertz says that sounds really well organized, and they're impressed. We're impressed too. There's something to be said about a community that, Brattleboro is this space that is surrounded by very small rural towns. And because it's sort of developed, it has a whole downtown area. It was an industrial center back during the turn of the century. It was a major book publisher right up until I think very shortly before we moved here.
Yeah.
They printed some of the US copies of Harry Potter right here in town.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Neat.
There are some copies of Harry Potter. We, of course, don't have a single one of them. Where if you look at the back of the book, it'll say published in Brattleboro, Vermont. But because it has this infrastructure, but it is very small. Like my hometown, the town that I grew up in New Jersey, didn't have a downtown. The downtown area was just it was a diner that sort of existed in a basement in a building that not a lot of people really went to, and the Catholic school that I went to. But there were twice as many people in that town as there are in Brattleboro. So it feels like they have the space to like really sit back and like organize everything.
Brattleboro is a town with a lot of infrastructure built for more people than it has right now. And I think that's partially because the trains used to run through here much more frequently.
Right.
We used to have a much fancier, nicer train station than we do now that we have one Amtrak that stops twice a day, once going north, once going south. And also, much more recently than the train station dimming down, we used to have a nuclear power plant right nearby. Vermont Yankee nuclear power plant closed down in, I think, 2006. Not too long ago, maybe later.
I feel like it was more recent than that. My impression is that it's more recent than that, but that it was a very long process that started a while ago.
Yeah.
Just because it employed basically everybody around here.
Yeah, it was the area's biggest employer, and it was a huge process shutting it down because nuclear cleanup. And then there was also a major hurricane, Hurricane Irene, some years back, 2014.
Well, I think it wasn't technically a hurricane by the time it got up here.
It was enough to do a lot of damage to an already struggling economy. And so what we have now is this town that is recovering from these twin disasters of the biggest employer closing and this hurricane.
Right. For context, the town is built right on a river, and the downtown is right on top of the river. Like it's elevated up from the river, but that didn't help a whole lot when the river flooded. So there was a lot of, which was before we moved up here, but there was a lot of damage, and parts of town are still kind of recovering from that.
There's definitely still a building on the river that is condemned and sad and has the bottom 2 feet of it like stained from floods.
Yeah.
That was recently actually purchased for $1. This building was sold to a new development coming up downtown for $1.
It's an expansion
Right, because
of the currently existing art museum.
yeah, it's going to be an art thing and art apartments, and it's going to be great. But the reason that it was priced so low was that the expense comes in cleaning it up,
Or demolishing it.
or probably demolishing it. Yeah, and then cleaning up the site because it used to be a power building, a power plant building.
Yeah, I think so. Something
Yeah.
like that. Because again, it's right on the river.
Yeah. But yeah, so Brattleboro is a town that used to be bigger and used to be busier, and now kind of knows what to do and how to be busy, but doesn't have the people to fill it up that it
Yeah.
once did, I think.
Yeah, the train apparently it used to be like a commuter train basically that ran down through Massachusetts, through Connecticut, and down into New York, and then well, it kept going to Washington, to DC. But we mostly just the shortened schedule now, it still runs that route, which is why we're very familiar with it, is because when we were living in the city, we would take it up from New York. And it's like a 5-hour train ride.
But a pleasant 5 hours. Like, it's chill. It's not like a 5-hour plane ride, which is frankly awful and was awful even before all of this. 5 hours on the Amtrak is like, oh, you chill out and you take a nap and you read a book and you don't have to go through 2 hours on either side of security.
Oh yeah, that's nice. I mean, if you're coming up from New York, then you do have to wait around in Penn Station, which is always fun.
Mm-hmm.
At least you get the Krispy Kreme there.
I miss Krispy Kreme so much.
No, it's so funny. Krispy Kreme. When I lived in Jersey, the closest Krispy Kreme to me was the one in Penn Station. And now that I live in Vermont, the closest Krispy Kreme to me is the one in Penn Station. Crystal Sun says, we're so far away. You. Yeah, Vermont is very far from lots of things.
Yep.
So many things. It's one of those states that you just don't like think about unless you live in New England.
Oh my God. Negev Gertz in chat says, I've never had Krispy Kreme. How good can it really be? Okay, so
I don't want to sit here and be like, it's like a life-changing donut. All I want to say is if you don't like Dunkin' Donuts, you'll probably like Krispy Kreme. They're more, they're kind of, they're more toothsome. I hate that word, but you know what I mean when I say it.
They're very well named. The glaze is really smooth, so the glaze does crack under, just a very light sort of crack under your mouth. It's like a
Says crunch.
Yes, a little tiny
glaze,
crunch.
I find the glaze similar to Dunkin' Donuts, except that in my experience, Dunkin' Donuts glazes taste like they have stale coffee in them, which is not something that I like. But it's really the donut itself. It's more like a yeasty, bready kind of texture. So it has more of a chew and a pull to it.
Yeast is important. I have been seeing all of these wonderful tutorials on Twitter of how to grow your own yeast in your own kitchen, and I'm excited to try some of this out, especially now that it's no longer so cold here that I would think any microorganism would die in our kitchen overnight.
Negev Gertz says, I think of donuts as something that's supposed to be soft, so I don't really understand the appeal. That's totally fair.
Yeah.
They're not for everybody, and I don't like people who are like, oh, this is the best thing ever, and if you like something else, then you're wrong.
You're wrong forever. No, it's the yeast. I think it's the yeast. They know how to do it. They're really good. They're really consistent, which I've had a problem with Dunkin' Donuts just being hit or miss.
Yeah, I don't know. I grew up with the Dunkin' Donuts closest to me.
I grew up with a local shop called Ken's Donuts. It was in Austin, Texas, and I miss them also. I miss them so much. They were made fresh every day. They were just there on the intersection by University of Texas, Austin, across catty corner from the Toy Joy. And for my birthday every year, I would ask for a dozen Ken's donuts for like a good solid 6 years there. I didn't want birthday cake. I wanted Ken's donuts. God, they were good.
I always want birthday cake. Our tradition in my home was that we would get a Carvel ice cream cake for our birthdays every year. And I still make Eli do that.
I mean, it's important. Traditions are important.
Which is, I feel bad for it because Eli likes to bake. It's just, I just don't.
I'll bake
Regular
whatever.
Regular cake is so dry compared to ice cream cake. But it doesn't feel like a birthday without a caramel ice cream cake.
I like that review. Ice cream cake. It's wet. So there is a stack that's going to become 50 cloth masks, and I've now blocked it out 50 in little sections of 10. So that gets to go to the studio for surging together later.
Oh, Risa Trauner, who has asked us to call him Starbit, says they've never been on a train that isn't like the subway. That's fair. Non-subway trains are expensive. I think it usually costs us close to like $100 to get from New York to Vermont.
Oh, it's wildly variable. Some years it's like $80, and some years it's like $350.
It's like they're like airplane tickets. They go up and down depending on how close you are to when you're going to when you're leaving, what time of year you're going, whether or not this has been a good year for travel.
It's Amtrak is I think even more variable than plane tickets.
Yeah.
But it's more comfy. It's worth it most of the time. It's not worth it when it's like $300. It's worth it for a lot of the time.
It was so funny. The last time, what are you looking for?
A bag of unstretched ties, possibly the blue bag.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
The last time that we took the train was when we did our pop-up in New York.
Oh yeah.
And for some reason, it was cheaper to get the business class ticket than the regular ticket, which just, it meant we were in the very last car and we had more leg space.
It was nice.
And we're right next to the cafe car. It was weird.
Yeah. So I'm gonna make ear loops now. That's what I'm doing. Is I'm making transcribed ear loops.
I have a streamer of masks. Here we go. I'm trying to find the end of the streamer.
When I'm at the studio, I use our little portable buzz saw for this part, but that kind of makes terrible audio.
Yeah.
And also, I don't like to bring too many of the industrial tools home. We spent our first year and a half here in Vermont, in Brattleboro, working out of this space, out of this dining nook. And now that we have a studio space where the industrial machines are and the little handheld buzzsaw is and all of that, it's hard to think about bringing any of that back home and working at home.
Yeah, just to give you an idea of how big this space actually is. You can see my hand right here. I'm touching our couch. You guys are on our counter that separates the kitchen space. And yeah, it's a very small space.
It's really hard to believe that for a year there, more than a year there, this space had a block of drawers for fabric and an industrial sewing machine and this table.
It was, it was a shelf.
Yeah.
One of those steel shelves that we have at this space, which you might have seen, was over here against this wall. And then we had the serger behind Eli, which is where our
dish hutch.
Yeah, the hutch
Yeah.
is right now. Um, yeah, and then we use this table for uh, putting together layouts and cutting them and everything else that wasn't sewing. We actually specifically bought a dining room table so that we would have something to cut on that wasn't the couch. That's the entire
Yeah.
reason we have a dining room table.
It's a production table first, and then dining room table second. I think we must have made 50 binders on this thing before we had dinner on it.
Negative asks, have they requested ear loops versus a strap around the head, or is it just whatever is easiest? Also, awesome trans fabric.
So, yeah, our local hospital has requested ear loops. This is also easier and quicker, and because time is of the essence and volume is important, doing the easy, quick thing is preferred first. Some people ask for straps around the head, and we're making a few with straps around the head. But for hospitals, a lot of times they want the ear loops because they want to be able to get it off really quickly and with one simple motion, as opposed to having to like reach back there, grab a cloth tie, untie it, untie a second cloth tie, and then lean forward and get it off. No, they want to just chuck it straight in the wash.
Right, because part of the safety is being able to not touch the mask a lot.
Yep.
But yeah, again, this is all variable depending on the hospital that you're working with. Yeah, that's what our local hospital has asked for.
Yeah, there's a really cool pattern for a mask with nose with a nose fit and cloth ties going around. That's titled "By a Nurse for a Nurse," and it's like that's really cool that this nurse made a pattern that worked specifically for their practice and what they needed. So yeah, it really does depend. And I also think cloth ties are probably better for people who are wearing it longer, who are just planning to be out there all day, because ear loops, especially the traditional elastic ear loops, can like dig into the back of your ear, right?
They are usually switching out masks when they go from patient to patient.
Right.
But if you're like, a surgeon or something, you're wearing that mask throughout the surgical procedure.
That makes sense. And the cloth ties are also more secure than an ear loop, I think. Which, if you're a surgeon and you're like leaning over and bending and moving your head around a lot, I know that just wearing my own mask with the ear loops, sometimes the ear loops will catch on the earpiece of my glasses, and then it's like, okay, time to detangle and figure this crap out, which I need to do with both hands. And if both your hands are busy, yeah, cloth ties might work better. But yeah, our current, there has been a lot of discourse about the right kind of mask over the past 2 weeks, 3 weeks, ramping up over the past week. You okay there?
Yep, I just stabbed myself.
Oh no.
It's okay, I'm not bleeding.
Good. But yeah, there's been a lot of what's the right kind of mask discourse. And so our default answer to that has always been the right kind of mask is the kind your hospital wants.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, there's so much variation just because, different doctors went to different medical schools at different times during the century. And every hospital has a different administrator who's gotten their information from, all different places. So, and like, there's no right or wrong answer to any given question most of the time. So it really is just what the local doctors feel is best.
There's a few wrong answers.
Well, right. But like, it's not like, there's no one way to get the answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to get across, I guess.
Individual practices require individual solutions, which is also, kind of like our entire guiding philosophy behind shapeshifters and making binders, is that people are different. And they have different head shapes in the case of masks. And chat's talking about binders and getting binders made out of this, which I love to do. I love making transcribed binders. This is the scraps that we're making ear loops from are just not quite big enough. Like that is not quite big enough to make a binder at all, but it's too big to just get rid of. So I kept it, and now it's turning into transcribed on masks.
Yeah, usually it's something we would make like headbands or dice bags or something out of.
Yeah.
There's no conventions to sell those at right now.
Conbust RIP. I hope we see them again this year. And if not, someday.
Hopefully next year.
One really nice thing about living in Brattleboro is that we're pretty close to Smith College, Amherst, Hampshire. That whole 5 college consortium is the word that I want to use there, though I don't know if it's the word they use. But yeah, the 5 colleges. When you say the 5 colleges in Western Massachusetts, you mean Smith, Amherst, Hampshire. There's 2 more.
Wait, you guys make dice bags? Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Are they? I don't remember if they're actually for sale on the website or if it's just something that we do at conventions.
I don't remember either.
You can email us though. I mean, not necessarily right now. Like the production is currently on hold.
But we can put you in the queue.
Yeah.
Where's my coffee?
Oh, Crystal's son is up in Northampton, not infrequently.
Yeah.
If they were on the website, they would be under accessories.
Accessories. Extras.
Yeah.
Accessories.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think we've sold like 1 to somebody outside of a convention context.
It was just something I made for fun out of scraps. But yeah, we can totally put them up on the website. Yeah.
I already have a dice bag, but now I want one from that fabric.
Yes. I really enjoy making dice bags, especially out of the tentacle fabric. Partially because, I mean, for all the reasons, because tentacles and fantasy adventures, and also partially because of the Adventure Zone, which I have gotten Krista into. I've finally gotten Krista to listen to almost all.
And by finally, they mean like several months ago.
Well, we're nearing the end. We're in the finale of the Balance arc.
Right.
And I'm so excited to
get
you.
Yeah, they're not on the website.
Okay. We'll fix that. I'm so excited to get you into Amnesty.
If they're different characters, right?
Yes. It is different characters, different settings, sometimes a different DM, though Amnesty is also DM'd by Griffin. And
by a different DM, do you mean somebody outside of the 3 of them?
No, 4 of them.
Not Griffin.
Yeah.
Right, 4 of them.
Yeah. There's after Balance ends, there's several like short arcs, and one of the short arcs is DM'd by Clint, and that's it's interesting. Mostly it means that Clint gets to be the one voicing a million NPCs, and he does it, which I think is hilarious and like absolutely Clint McElroy radio professional about it.
Right.
He does it by doing presidential impersonations.
Okay.
So you can play Guess That President with the NPCs of the Commitment Balance of Adventure Zone, and I love it. But yeah, the Amnesty is the next long one. Griffin DMs it, and it is a monster of the week in the vein of Buffy and Supernatural.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's like the McElroys take on Buffy, so it's really good. Because the McElroys do what Whedon didn't.
Which is not be kind of creepy and gross and problematic in lots of exciting ways.
Or learn from it when they once were.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to sit here and claim that I didn't watch Buffy while it was airing and be like, this is the greatest show that feminism has ever produced. I think at the time it probably was. But, you know, then we found out who Joss Whedon actually was as a person.
And the dude never grew up. Of course, we say this from our high and mighty horse as if we are not actively engaged in writing another Smallville AU right at this very moment.
Look, Smallville was a trash fire while it was airing.
Yes, it was.
I love Smallville, But
listen.
Michael
Mike
Rosenbaum was the
is a
best part
treasure.
of that show. Michael Rosenbaum, just yeah.
Michael Rosenbaum is a national treasure.
He I think made Lex a lot more sympathetic than the writers intended him to be.
Yeah.
And the writers did a lot of like really gross ableist, vaguely homophobic shit to code him as not a good person.
Oh,
But
only
then
vaguely?
all of us queers, went back and watched that and we're like, this is why. How is this person a supervillain? Why is everybody around him calling him a terrible person?
Because he dares to have emotions
And mental illness and an abusive father.
and reactions.
Anyway, Michael Rosenbaum and John Glover, who played his father, were the best actors on that show, which isn't to say that there weren't other good actors, but they were the best actors on that show. And every scene that they had together was incredible.
Yeah.
We've gone off on a tangent. That's
We
okay,
do that.
though. Yeah.
What were we? Oh, yeah, we were going to talk about Brattleboro. We've been talking about Brattleboro. So one of the things that I really like about The Adventures of Amnesty is that it's set in a small town in rural America.
Okay.
Which I really do enjoy. It's set in Kepler, West Virginia. And I am not sure that I would have... I'm not sure that I would have gotten so deeply into Amnesty so fast if I didn't also now live in a small town in rural America. Because there's a certain set of play conditions, let's say, to living here. Hi, I'm a gamer and a nerd. When you move to a small town, you learn to adapt to a certain set of play conditions and parameters that are completely different, of course, from the ones that we lived by commuting into New York City or living in Brooklyn.
Or living in New Jersey, or living in Austin, Texas.
Or living in Austin, Texas. I mean, the play conditions for me in Austin, Texas were just don't. I did not go outside. I did not drive. I did not socialize. I dissociated. That's how I played Austin, Texas. But here in Brattleboro, when things are better and life is better and I've transitioned and the play conditions are essentially you go outside on a normal month, not this month, on a normal month. You go outside, you go shopping, you walk down Main Street, and you see someone you know. And
Which is weird.
And maybe you wave across the street, and maybe you pause and have a conversation. But it is a rare day out when you don't see someone who you've at least met in passing, if not have like an actual real friendship with. And we started this game of living in Brattleboro with a cheat code, and the cheat code is community theater. Like we have sort of this completely coincidental and wonderful starting advantage, which was that we moved in to a duplex and our neighbors in the same building as us were already involved in community theater and are also nerds. So we met them and they were like, hey, you should get into theater. And we were like, yeah, we want to. And we immediately went and auditioned for Christmas Carol that year and got involved in the Halloween show as well, the same year that we moved in.
Yeah, we if you're familiar with a salt box style house, where it's the house is built on a hill, so it's 2 floors in the front and 1 floor in the back. We're on the first floor in the front, and our neighbors are on the second floor, so they have access to the backyard right from their apartment. We have to go around.
This is also why you will never see any windows in this live stream, is because we live in a half basement.
Negative says, I grew up in a small town and live in an even smaller town. And it's funny that you're describing this as something weird. Like, of course you see people when you go outside. So here's the thing, right? Like I said, I grew up in New Jersey, and the town that I grew up in while it was relatively small by New Jersey standards, it had twice as many people as live in this town. And on top of that, like I went to one of the two Catholic schools. That was how many people we had in this town. We had enough people to warrant two Catholic schools, plus I think we had two elementary and two middle schools also, public elementary and middle schools, and the high school, and they were starting to get overcrowded by the time by the time I got older. And
For reference, when you say twice as many as Brattleboro, you mean like 40,000, 50,000 people in your hometown?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's 42,000, something like that. But yeah, I could walk down the street. I could go to the July 4th celebration, and I did on multiple occasions, and not see anybody that I actually knew.
Meanwhile, I grew up in Austin, Texas during a time when it was, but when we moved there, it was full of students and aging hippies and musicians. And then shortly after we moved there, a couple of little companies called Dell and IBM started getting kind of, big. So the tech boom hit Austin, and between in the 10 years between when I was between the ages of 5 and 15, Austin went from 500,000 to 1.5 million in population. And I could go out the few times that I did go out. No, I didn't know anyone ever. I did not live in the same neighborhood as any of my classmates. It was kind of just a very busy place full of newcomers all the time.
Yeah, and there are just too many people. Like, okay, I did usually see one of my elementary school classmates' parents at the grocery store, but that's just because she worked there. Bless you.
Thank you.
But yeah, New Jersey, Sayreville is the town that I grew up in. It just has so many people. It's the most densely populated state in the country, which is part of why it's having some troubles right now. Yeah, Brattleboro is a lot smaller. And like, it was weird. We did the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee a couple years ago.
God, that was fun.
And it was the theater company that we do shows with. They don't do a lot of musicals, so this was like a big deal, and it was a great show. And it broke records. It broke local records for our theater company that they ended up like having to turn people away at the door on that last weekend, and we got recognized from being in that show, just wandering around downtown, by people we had never met before.
For a year.
Yeah.
For a year afterwards, people would be like, "Hey, I saw you in that musical. You were great." And mostly to Krista. But gosh, it was so much fun. It was also, like, I gotta say, Putnam County Spelling Bee as a musical has the two lead spellers in the spelling bee are written in the script as a guy and a girl, and naturally they have a sort of a romance, a kid romance, written into it,
a cutesy romance,
right? So when Krista was cast in the role that normally goes to a guy, and this was like, okay, we have swapped this character. This character, instead of being William, is now Wilma.
Yeah,
Wilma.
Wilma Barfay.
Yep. And they didn't change the script, and they didn't change the duet, and they didn't change the pas de deux, the dance together, and there was just this lovely lesbian interlude on stage. And the reception being so overwhelmingly positive it was really nice. It was really nice to see how many people came out for it. while this dance is happening on stage, this little romantic dance between these two characters is happening on stage.
Romantic. They're 12.
They're 12. They're 12 and they're having like a fantasy ballet. Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, fantasy ballet. And
it was choreographed as more of a waltz, but it was called a pas de deux.
Yeah. My character is sitting there in the dark on the stage quietly looking out into the audience because the spotlight's on them and they're in their fantasy world.
Eli played the vice principal who was not commentating, that's the wrong word, but giving the words. Yeah, moderating.
Yeah. I played the moderator. I played the villainous academic, which is what I'm typecast as, by the way. So while I was sitting there in the dark looking out at the audience, I got to see people's faces while that dance was happening. And it was just really nice to watch people watching you dance and being like, and just
and the ridiculous
hugging each other and having a great time.
I recreated not my personal elementary Catholic school uniform, but the ones that my brothers wore. Sort of. I mean, they wore pants, and it was navy blue pants and a light blue button down and a tie. So I had navy blue shorts, a button down, a light blue button down, and a navy blue tie, and
knee socks.
And knee socks because I have a tattoo.
Which the 12-year-old spelling bee winner character,
right, yeah, was likely not to actually have. It was so hot. It was in the spring. And so I had these like thick wool knee socks that I had to keep up, and like over the course, because it was supposed to be like a full spelling bee, right? So over the course of the show, I was given permission to get like a little bit more unkempt,
disheveled.
Yeah. But I was only able to do that so much because of I have another tattoo right here. So I couldn't even like roll up my sleeves. I would like get up there after intermission and be like, God, it's so hot, and be like guzzling water and thinking, okay, I'm just gonna roll up my sleeves, and then I look down and be like, crap.
The other really fun thing about that show, and a thing that let us meet a lot of our community members around here in Brattleboro and Dummerston and surrounds, was that there is audience participation involved. Audiences get the chance to volunteer to become competitors in the spelling bee. And I'm the one who mainly interacted with them on stage because I was the moderator of this spelling bee. So it was me and my co-spelling bee moderator.
Our upstairs neighbor.
The two of us were mostly doing the interacting.
Yeah,
and
she was the announcer.
Yep.
Sort of.
Yep.
Yeah.
She was the announcer and I was the vice principal assigning words. And so I got to look at these people, some of whom I knew and most of whom I didn't.
One of them was my older brother.
Yeah.
My family came up to see the show.
And I got to pick out words for them. And I got to decide, okay, I want to keep this person around for a couple of rounds, or no, I want this person off the stage as soon as possible, because
like literally, like that is part of the job description for this character. It's in the script.
Yeah.
Like you have to decide how to get this person off stage, because we need no more audience participation by intermission.
By intermission, all the audience members have to get off stage, and it is also in the script, in the directions for this character, just like a warning, hey, some audience members are going to want to ham it up. They're going to want to drag out the show and stay at the microphone and do things that they have not been instructed to do.
Or things that they have been instructed not to do.
Mm-hmm. And I didn't really take that seriously until after the first night, when I got blindsided by an audience member who wanted 15 minutes at the microphone. So I got to learn how to like suss out audience members and be like, okay, you really just want to be a part of this and you can stay around for 3 rounds, and you really want to like show off for people. So I'm going to give you the Welsh word that has no vowels. And let's see if you can spell this one, smart guy.
Which totally isn't legal in a real spelling bee, but
this is not a real
if you're the person who's making the rules, then
I think my favorite one, and I think I hit our other upstairs neighbor with this one.
So Katie is the one who was playing our moderate, not well, the announcer, moderator,
Announcer,
whatever. And her husband was one of the volunteer spellers one night.
Yeah, and I think it's him who I hit with the name of the Icelandic volcano, Eyjafjallajökull, and I practiced that, and I practiced saying my example sentence, which I've forgotten now, but it involved me like deadpan in
Yeah, something about news broadcaster suddenly had to learn how to pronounce.
yeah. And so I got good at like saying that deadpan in a very serious voice. And when I hit our neighbor with that one, he like visibly reeled on stage, and it was really great. It was so much fun.
Yeah, I think there were 3 audience participants.
4
4
per night.
I thought there were.
Sometimes there were only 3, but mostly there were 4, and I was supposed to knock out one of them right away.
Okay.
Like immediately upon being called up.
See, this is the thing about spelling bee. At least from the perspective of the spellers, and I think Katie has mentioned having this experience also, is that none of us really knew how the show went. Like, because it's not a progression of a story, really. It's a progression of words. Like, it is just a spelling bee, and it's scripted, but there's no like logical progression from one hit to the next. So there's no real like flow. And the only thing, like, I knew what songs happened before my songs happened, or before the songs I was involved in happened. And I knew what word came up before it was somebody else's words came up before I was supposed to go up. And that was the only way I was able to keep track of the show.
And it's still wild to me to hear you say that, because to me the flow was very clear.
Right, because Eli was the only one really like.
I was involved in each piece.
Yeah.
I gave out each and every word.
Yeah, and I like when I don't know if this is like something that lots of folks do.
Would you pass me a Kleenex?
But when I do a show, I really need to like focus on exactly what I'm doing and not pay a whole lot of attention, beyond like, the normal reacting and whatever to what everybody else is doing. So I tend to not really bother paying attention to scenes that other people are in.
Meanwhile, this was the first role I had ever had on stage in English. And before that, I had done stage managing. So having a role that was essentially, I am your stage manager on stage in character in front of you, telling you what to do, was perfect for me. It's like, all right, I am your villainous academic stage manager. This is a job I can do.
Yeah, it was.
Do you have the remote?
Oh, yep. I know YouTube is binge shaming us.
I know.
Yeah, it was a challenging show.
Yeah.
Negative asks, what language had you done?
Oh gosh. Okay, so before we ever moved to Vermont, I was here twice I was here in summers frequently in visiting my grandparents.
Not in Brattleboro, but in a town about 40 minutes north of here, 45 minutes north of here, depending on how fast you drive.
That town called Townsend. And I had also come up to Vermont a couple of times to go to Middlebury, which is a couple hours further north. And Middlebury College has a summer language program where you basically go there for between 6 and 8 weeks, and you sign an agreement saying you will not speak English, you will only speak your target language, and you will live with people who are only speaking your target language. And I did the German program, and I was in year 1 of German. I went there knowing basically zero German, and I came out after 6 weeks able to carry on a conversation with a decent accent, and it was God, it was so good. It's an extremely good program, and they're extremely good at just giving you 4 hours of classes in the morning and 3 to 4 hours of homework in the afternoon and extracurriculars and reasons to want to speak in your target language all the time. And for the German school, they had a theater program. And I had never done theater before. And I figured, well, if I suck at acting, no one will be able to tell because they'll think I'm just struggling with the language. And because
cheat code.
cheat codes. And because I was the only year one in the theater program, everybody else who had decided to do the theater extracurricular thing was year 2 or up. Everybody else like already knew some German going in, and the program started in like week 2, so I could by then communicate basic needs like what's that and what does this mean and can we stop and I am hurt, basic theater things that are important to be able to say. But I certainly did not understand the play that I was in or the character that I was playing or the script or any of that for weeks. I read the words out loud and I attempted to focus on the pronouncing the words and then slowly figuring out on maybe the 4th or 5th repetition what they meant. And even when I knew the surface meaning of what they meant, I then went to the director to record a monologue because part of the production was we all recorded a monologue beforehand so that it could be just played in between scenes. And the way that I read the monologue to that director showed her that I didn't understand it at all. Like I read my monologue in a really like defiant tone, like this is the truth. This is the truth as I know it. And she looked at me and she said, okay, speaking in slow German so that I could get it. Like really, one of the nice things about Middlebury is all the teachers are very compassionate and understanding and like, hey, I know this is really hard and you're trying your best about it. And that's so important for any teacher, but especially for a teacher who you're dealing with 12 hours a day for 6 weeks. And this teacher looked at me, this director who was also a teacher, looked at me and said, you're delivering this with a lot of confidence, but this is a confession. This character is ashamed. This character has done something wrong and is ashamed of it. And I looked at her and I looked back at the monologue and I didn't quite get it, but I delivered the monologue. I read the monologue for her, acting as if I was ashamed. And at the end of that reading, when I had like put shame, the emotion of shame into the words started to make sense to me.
This is my experience with Shakespeare. And it's also my deep-rooted fear every time we do a Shakespeare read-through. Is that we're just going to get to one of my lines and I'm going to like think that I understand what it's saying. But of course I don't read things ahead of time. And sometimes it's hard to understand what you're saying, like what the line actually says without somebody who knows what it's saying, like intoning it properly. And I'm going to read it and people are just going to be like, you have no idea what that means, do you? You're like,
Why
no,
did you do
I
that?
don't.
Yeah, no, Middlebury was a great place to do this because, like I said, everyone was really compassionate and understanding of the fact that I had no idea what the hell it meant. And at that point, like after I got clued in that, oh, this is a shameful confession, I started to understand what my character had done. And once I understood what my character had done, I understood the scene. And it was like, oh, in this scene that I'm acting in, my character is arrogant and brash and aggressive. And play about ostracizing what was happening because I don't remember was Jewish text. Like it was in the text, but it was not immediately evident to a first year.
That's fair.
Yeah, it's like things that were immediately obvious to people who had taken German for even a semester. Like for me, it was like, okay, I'll come back to it later. But I was having that experience of I'll come back to that word later 20 times a day. Middlebury's amazing.
For the record, I have never actually been called out. for obviously not knowing what a line is supposed to mean at a reading. I did get I mean, it wasn't like we're doing Richard III hopefully this summer, and there's a scene where one of my characters is like, pledging to the current king that, I swear that I do actually like this other person, and it was not clear to me from context that I was supposed to be sarcastic about it. So that's the only note I've ever gotten from a read through. And I was the first one who did it. I was like, my character was the first one in the scene to be going through this process.
The fealty oath.
Yeah. Not fealty oath. Just I swear that I do love this person.
And also, like, Richard III being one of the histories, there's a lot of context there that is not to a modern reader.
Yeah.
Like, even without Shakespeare and Shakespeare's general, like, Shakespeare doesn't include sarcasm tags. We were both in Macbeth last year, and it was amazing. It was, yet again, another reason that I frickin' love Brattleboro is that the community theater scene around here is such that sometimes a guy who does wrestling, like amateur pro wrestling, directs a Shakespearean play and teaches half of us to wrestle as part of the stage combat. So I got to be murderer number one in Macbeth, and I got to get thrown around the stage by Banquo, and it was
who is
great.
Directing Richard III this year.
She's great. And it was really fun. I learned a lot. I finally started to, between Macbeth and the Boston League of Wicked Wrestlers, 2019 was the year that I finally discovered wrestling as performance art. That I sort of started to understand that.
I was definitely into wrestling as a kid. I watched the WWF back when it was the WWF. For some strange reason, they came and did a show at my local public high school. And my mom got us all tickets to that, me and my two brothers.
Good.
And it was awesome, even if my favorite wrestler wasn't there.
Aww.
But
the Boston League, everyone, you should know the Boston League of Wicked Wrestlers has a Patreon now, and they're putting up filmed matches from the last match. And we need to sit down and watch some of them, Krista.
Yeah.
Because they put up the match that's the Sparkle Squad versus
Becky and Sheila, the divorce lawyer.
Becky, the owner, and Sheila, the divorce lawyer. Yes, they put up that match, and they also put up the trash match, which was
Rat King
and Cheryl versus Valentine. I think.
Right.
It was amazing. Rat King is amazing. Rat King might be my new favorite wrestler in Blow, but of course I have like a rotating 3 or 4 favorites in Blow. But listen. In the trash match, Rat King got stuffed in a trash can and rolled off the ring. And then he came back and made a comeback and won, and it was so good. It was, gosh.
And we don't get to watch all of the matches while we're there, just because, we have to babysit the table.
We're up on a balcony over the main wrestling ring, and we're selling stuff during the matches, and mostly during an intermission and before, but also during the matches. If someone comes by, we sell to them. So I'm super excited to get to see the full match from the point of view of the camera. Can't wait to see the Sparkle Squad. Krista, you should show off your t-shirt.
Oh yeah, hold on, wait. Let me just finish spinning this particular plate. Here we go. So the Sparkle Squad is Queerosaurus Rex and Gemma the bisexual unicorn. And this is how we found out about Blow, was Queerosaurus Rex got in touch with us to make their ring gear But do you have a
Yes. Where is it?
sample?
Queerosaurus Rex, the wrestler Queerosaurus Rex, asked us to make their ring gear out of this fabric, and we were like, yes, we will. And we did, and they wrestled in it for this particular match, which is now up on Patreon, and it's so exciting and wonderful. And also, I have to say, there is really nothing like seeing a wrestler wearing gear that we made, being their incredible, strong, powerful, I don't want to say imagined self, wrestling self, wrestler Sona.
Wrestler Sona.
Yeah, there's something about seeing a wrestler sort of step into that character and inhabit that character and become that version of themselves, which is really, really cool to see. And when they're wearing something that we made, it's like we created this thing that they can pull on to become this magnified version of themselves.
On top of the rainbow face paint. The
On
rainbow Tyrannosaur face paint.
On top of the rainbow face paint, on top of the amazing moves, on top of everything else that they do, we helped.
Yeah.
It was so cool.
It was a top and a skirt. Was it a
and sleeves also.
and sleeves? Was it just a top?
Yeah, it was a hooded tank top.
Okay, yeah. So it's a hooded tank top and a pair of sleeves, and the skirt was like a high-low skirt, but cut so that it looks like a tail. And then Eli put dinosaur spikes on it.
Yeah. Ah, God, that was good. And then, of course, the guy who directed Macbeth, who wrestles under, should I say his wrestling name? That's a thing I can do, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, he wrestles under the name Kirby Wackerman.
Which is a great name.
It's a great name. And so far as I can tell from the matches that I have seen, his wrestling Sona is sort of chaotic evil. Like, he's a heel, but he's a fun heel.
Uh-huh.
And
he has big, thick nerd glasses, taped in the center, I think.
Yeah, and a mullet. And
well, that's just his hair.
Yeah, and his colors are bright pink and bright blue, and he needed an emergency costume repair back in February, I think it was.
Yeah, it was not long ago.
Yeah, January, February, and we ended up just making him a new applique for his costume that was huge and had his logo on it, and
a simplified version of his logo.
A simplified version of his logo on it in our glitteriest, sparkliest fabrics. And I'm gonna retweet that GIF that I made of the video, because there's this just wonderful video of him wearing it as he wrestles, and I made a GIF of him like hurling himself over his opponent and then rolling and doing a little chin prop and high wave, and it's great.
Specifically, it was out of so it was a bomb on a pink and blue background. So it was unicorn barf and jellyfish tears, and the bomb was out of oil slick.
Glitter everywhere.
It's GIF, not GIF. It's GIF.
This is a dividing line in our household.
This is the problem with bringing two people together that grew up halfway across the country from each other.
Giraffics interchange format.
Like a giraffe. Everybody's just saying no.
What I love is I can't tell who you're saying no to.
The tallest. The tallest of formats. All right, it is 4:23. I am out of masks to pleat.
Lovely. And I said we'd go till 4:30.
All right.
We're here. You want to...
Saying no to me. That's fine. I'm the less popular of the two of us. I'm used to it.
Oh, come on. This is far too tempting to do, by the way, when you're just stretching and a 3/4 inch wide strip of Lycra between your hands. It is harmless. It is not like a rubber band. And it's sometimes too tempting to resist. Thanks for coming out, y'all.
Yeah.
This is like always really, really freaking nice to do. So we're definitely doing it every Saturday at 3 p.m. EST. And sometimes it will be so alongs here, and sometimes it will be at the mill whenever that happens.
Mhm.
And yeah, we'll figure it out as we go. We'll keep sewing.
And I'm just thinking about that time in high school where one of my friends actually did almost lose their eye because somebody flicked a rubber band at them.
Rubber bands are different. Oh God, some people are making masks, cloth masks with rubber bands for earpieces. And some people say, hey, this really works, and it works really well. And it's like, that's great. I'm glad it works for you. I think I would die. I got that sensitive skin, and if you just put a rubber band around my ear and pulled it forward for any amount of time, I think I would be clawing my own ears off after about
Well,
a
I guess
minute.
if it's big enough,
Maybe.
then it's not gonna rub that
Yeah.
a lot.
That's also one of those things. It's like, isn't that a major vector for a latex allergy? I actually don't know if rubber bands have latex in them.
Well, they're rubber.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, I don't remember if they're like similar, but yeah.
It's really cool. It's cool seeing people like make masks out of a handkerchief plus 2 hair ties. When I went to pick up our farm share CSA today, which was our share, our local farmer had a bandana. And then I brought her a mask because she grows our vegetables. So of course I did. Oh, one more thing I want to say about Brattleboro that I really frickin' love about the mask sewing community in Brattleboro. We're in quilting country up here.
Oh yeah.
We're in serious quilting country, and everyone who has a sewing machine and many people who don't have a yard or two of cotton. And some people have a lot more than a yard or two. Literally this morning, someone posted to our mask sewing group saying, hey, I've been hoarding fabric for this moment. I just put 100 yards of cotton on my porch. Come and get it.
It's probably gone by now.
It's probably gone by now from all of the response they got. And it's like, it's stunning to me that people who quilt for a hobby, who have just been making nice things for their friends and their family for years, now in this moment are like, hey, I can help save the world. There's a lot of us around here, and we're getting pretty good coordination, and I think we're going to be okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, if you want to sew masks and you don't know who in your area is doing it, look for the quilting groups. Yeah. That's my tip. The quilting groups are doing it right now. Yeah. That's what I want to say. Oh, I have one more thing to show you all before we go, which is this one scrap of spandex. And it's called Gothic Unicorn Skulls.
Need to get a nice close-up on this.
The print is called Gothic Unicorn Skulls. And that's going to get turned into ear loops. And I'm so happy about it. That I am going to be sending Gothic unicorns. We are going to be sending Gothic unicorns out into the world as protective emblems.
Along with the transpride stripes.
Along with the transpride stripes. Along with what I've been stretching is like this wonderful leafy green pattern that was an underwater sea garden print.
Oh, that's not the forest nymph one.
Nope.
Right, that's more.
That's long gone. Yeah.
Well, it's not. I have brought that one.
Yeah, but the scraps from Forest Nymph were last year.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah. Hey, Krista, we've been doing this for 6 years.
Yeah.
We've been handling spandex specifically for 6 years and 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're learning how to sew cotton. Alrighty. Love y'all. Stay safe, and we'll see you around, okay?
See you next week.
See you next week.